Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a privilege and honor to be with you here tonight. Well, tonight. Seems like night because of the lights today. But I think I have to have the clicker so that it's be easier. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So, first I'd like to ask a simple question. What do you think of the term environmentalist? Do you think of someone who has a lot of technical knowledge in climate science? Or maybe someone who's in the streets always protesting about their environmental rights? Or maybe someone who chooses and uses environmentally sustainable products or organic products? Is your image be of someone who has to do drastic, massive policy change? Or maybe they're people who are living off the grid. Keep that idea and let's see if it changes within the next 20 or so minutes. Earlier, the host introduced me as someone who's been working on climate and environment issues for many years. I don't know if I fit your typical image of an environmentalist. But I'm here today to talk to you about why being an environmentalist shouldn't be hard and advocating for and protecting our earth. That one, it shouldn't be a burden or a job, why it shouldn't feel like it's work, or that it should be actually require a label, and how it can be instinctive, like second nature. Why is this important and why should we act? Because we know that our world faces an unprecedented challenges on environment. We are living in the time called Anthropocene, a period in which humans' actions are shaping significantly our biosphere and its processes. And it's the human processes which is the dominant driver now. In fact, we're at the crossroads because we are at the crossroads wherein, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, we need to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above industrial levels. Otherwise, we will have the catastrophic and feel the catastrophic events and the worst effects of climate change. But unfortunately, we are not on track to limiting 1.5. In fact, last January 2025, WMO, or the World Meteorological Organization, confirmed that 2024 is the warmest year on record, clocking at 1.55 degrees above industrial levels. And the last 10 years, from 2015 to 2024, are record-breaking 10 of the warmest years that we've ever had. So our planet is really accelerating warmly at a fast pace. And if we don't act now, we will feel the extreme events and the consequences will be severe. You know, rising sea levels, more intense and frequent heat waves, extreme weather events such as hurricanes and typhoons, which are getting more powerful, even the disruption of our biodiversity and agriculture, and the displacement of entire communities. We are also already feeling the impacts of climate change in our economies, our communities, and ecosystems. Think about the wildfires that are already happening in different parts of the world, such as in the Amazon in the US, or the devastating floods that are happening in parts of Southeast Asia, particularly in the Philippines. The impacts of climate change are undeniable. And on top of that, we are also seeing our ecosystems and resources being depleted, and biodiversity loss has increased. Nature is disappearing right before our eyes. And for us in WWF, we issued a report in 2024 called the Living Planet Report. And we found that there is a catastrophic decline of as much as 73% of the average size of wildlife that we have measured in terms of population. in just the last 50 years, from 1970 to 2020. And this is really very sad. Further, climate change is not just an environmental issue. In fact, it's also a human issue. Its impacts are far-reaching. It affects our health, our economies, our communities. And the most vulnerable, unfortunately, bear the brunt of the consequences of climate change, despite being the one with the least to contribute to the problem. And therefore, addressing this triple planetary crisis is really not just only saving the environment. It's also making and creating a safer, fairer, and more sustainable future for all of us. Most Filipinos, meaning more than 85% of those who were surveyed by the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative in a nationwide survey, said that climate change is real. And almost 50% said that they will significantly or anticipate that in the next 5 years, they will significantly feel climate change impacts, not just physically, but also economically. In a recent online poll by the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, they polled nearly 3,000 young Filipinos who listed climate change as one of the top concerns. In fact, they said climate change is the biggest problem that they feel that they will have to face, because they believe that it will affect their access to education. They will also feel it in terms of possibly employment and maybe their overall quality of life. The organization Save the Children also stated that over 26 million enrolled Filipino students are feeling the impacts or consequences of the multifaceted impacts of climate change, including possibility of prolonged El Niño that brings about heat waves, unbearable prolonged heat, increased typhoons and precipitation or rain, and also lack of access to water. Just think about the last few years when we had incredible heat waves. But despite these daunting statistics, I believe there is hope. There is hope because while addressing climate change requires, of course, systemic changes, there is power in the individual, in the choices that we make. And as a collective, we can actually have opportunities for transformation. But it's easy to get overwhelmed, and you're probably going to think, what can one person do in the face of this monumental problem called climate change? But history has shown us that even the most significant changes start with small action, with one single individual actually thinking and deciding that they want to make a difference. So the question should be not can individual actions make a difference, but how can I, as an individual, contribute to addressing climate change and environmental challenges? Of course, it's easy. Why is it hard to be an environmentalist? It's easy to think that environmentalism is difficult or complex because we've been conditioned to think about saving our planet in extraordinary measures, with use of extraordinary action. And we always think about environmental protection as an extreme. Thinking that we would have to give up things that we love, or maybe spend so much money and time to make a difference, such as maybe, getting an electric vehicle, or going vegan, or maybe looking at using the most eco-friendly products. While these are significant actions, they in fact are not the only ways to make a difference. On top of that, sometimes many of us also think that our individual efforts could be ineffective if we don't do something bigger instead of just, for example, planting forests rather than just a tree, or having government changing in government policies. But this is farther from the truth. And when we also think about the food that we consume, the waste that we generate, or the water that we have, or even the plastic that we discard, if we think of these as and make it feel like they're just singular decisions, think about it that they are, but they all add up. And when they do add up, that can have significant impact. These are ways of thinking and mindsets that reflect cultural expectations and the myth of the complexity of the problem of environment, as well as society's mental disconnect of our everyday action with the environmental impact. So what if I tell you that driving change for a sustainable future can be as simple as doing small, meaningful, and deliberate choices, and following your passion and collaborating with the community. Each of us, whatever background or age or status that you have, can actually make a meaningful, positive impact on our environment. Because at the core of it, being an environmentalist is really doing decisions that are aligned with sustainability and the respect for our planet Earth. And by doing small, meaningful, and consistent choices, we are actually taking care of the world around us. We're creating and making choices that can be second nature. And by developing our passion for the environment and working with the community, that can really make a difference. In my early years, I didn't really label myself as an environmentalist, and up to now, it's not like a label that I carry. But growing up, I surrounded myself with nature. I was born in Cebu, but grew up in different parts of the country, primarily in Quezon City. And growing up, I'd spend summers in Cebu with my siblings and my cousins. And I have vivid, wonderful memories of going into the beach, climbing the tree house that my lolo maning and my uncles built, and also doing scavenger hunts around our ancestral compound through the gardens and the trees. My brother, who was born after me, was born in Baguio. And we spent some time there. And I still remember and have recollections of the feel of the city's cool, crisp air and the strong scent of pine cones. And I was also a Girl Scout. I don't know how many of you are Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout. I was an officer in our CAT. So I therefore loved camping and mountaineering. And when I grew up, I was fortunate enough to learn scuba diving. So I've dove in many parts of the country, and even dove in Tubataha Reef, which is our UNESCO World Heritage Site. So I've been very fortunate enough to be exposed and to feel the wonders of nature. Our country is, in fact, very blessed with natural beauty, and I hope everyone can be able to explore it. And even growing up, I also was fascinated by how things connect and how things work together. You know, the air we breathe, the water that we have, the animals and the trees. But I only realized later on how fragile that balance is. And when I started working for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, I then started to learn more about climate change and the environmental challenges that we face, and trying to find solutions to it. I still continue to learn to the various capacities and positions that I've had in my career. Because I realized that the world that I love is in danger. And this has really ignited the passion within me to do something. But how do we continue igniting change? It really starts with passion. Passion is the fuel that drives action, creativity, and innovation. It's when we care deeply about something that we'll be doing anything, even against obstacles, even when to be able to push through it, even when we're faced against, the odds are really against us. And the good news is that you all have the passion already within you. All you need to do is actively learn, engage, and contribute to cultivate a genuine passion for the environment and for our planet. Say, immerse yourself in nature. Learn more about environmental issues by listening to talks like this or in different fora. Perhaps you'd want to volunteer to do coastal cleanup. Or do active steps to deepen your connection to the natural world. Let me say this, and I know you've probably heard it before. You are the future of our planet. Sounds cliche, right? But it's true. The challenges that we face, climate change, environmental degradation, pollution, even the transition to renewable energy, will need your creativity, your unique ideas, your minds, and your action. And here's the thing, when you use your passion, not just in solving problems, you're actually able, through the process, fulfill your full potential. Because passion comes in many forms. For example, you might be a teacher who's probably here, and you want to be able to use your teaching skills to instill sustainability in the young minds. You might also be an artist who uses your platform to raise environmental awareness. Or you might be a business leader who instills sustainability and includes it in your company's practices. Or maybe even just be a student, wherein the things that you learn here, when you go back home, you actually tell your family about it and how you can do something about it. No one thing can be the only thing that can contribute to the change that we need for our environment. So the more we talk about it, the more we share, the more we collaborate, the more we learn from each other. When we go out here into the world and we implement the learnings and the actions, the greater is our impact. And environmentalism is not just a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about taking stock and looking, and in fact, using the things that we love, whether it be your love for technology, for science, for the arts, even activism. And if you follow what excites you and what drives you, and you also include thinking about the future of our planet, I believe you can make an impact. And that's how we drive lasting change. For me, it started really with small things. I started thinking about how do I reduce my carbon footprint by, reduce my waste. So I thought about my consumption patterns. I also, just merely segregating. That's how small things can be. And in fact, also looking at sustainability practices like energy conservation. Passion doesn't have to start big. It starts small, it can grow, it can spread, and it can lead to larger movements. What's exciting is to inspire the next generation, which is one of the most profound ways to ignite change. And today's young actually have the potential to be the most outstanding environmental leaders, even beyond what I'm doing today. You are tech savvy, you're creative, and you have the ideals of thinking that we want to make this world a better place to live in. But there's a catch. You have to be equipped with the knowledge, the skills, and hopefully the inspiration to take action. So it's beholden upon me, my generation, the older generation, to teach the young people about climate change and the environment, not only by showing you what is bad, but by showing to you that we already have the solutions in place, and you are part of the solution. By showing to you that you don't have to be a scientist, that I'm not a scientist by background. My background is economics and law. You don't have to be a renewable energy expert to make a difference. But you can be able to, hopefully, I can inspire you to be able to maybe plant a tree and ensure that it will grow up. Maybe do segregation properly in your house or here in school. Or maybe advocate for greener policies in your communities. That's how we will drive lasting change. More impressively, there are young people today who are already leading the charge. Think about Greta Thunberg. Many of you probably know her. At age 15, she inspired millions to join the Fridays for Future movement. But we don't have to look very far off. In fact, there are many Filipino youth who are now using their talents and skills to influence and inspire others to act for nature. This fellow on the right, he is Jose Gabriel Gab Mejia. He is the first Filipino youth to be awarded the WWF International President's Youth Award. He is a conservation photographer at the National Geographic Society and the co-founder of a global youth network that is advocating for the protection and conservation of wetlands. He's also an environmental writer and columnist, and he writes among his works the complexities of our Philippine forests by illuminating the lives of environmental forest defenders. They're just examples and proof that if you have passion paired with action, can move mountains. But there's another thing that I'd want to also stress. We cannot forget the power of community. Because while individual actions do make a difference, not one single person can change climate change or can address the problem of climate change alone. It's really a collective effort. And that's where we all come in. We can all be connectors, advocates, communicators. Think about the communities that you're part of. You know, your school, your workplace, your club, or even your online network. These are places where you can change the conversation and also change minds. These are fertile grounds for discussion to have about creative ideas to solutions such as the problems of climate change. And when I talk about communities, I'm also talking about intergenerational action. You and I will not all have the same, solutions. In fact, I don't profess to know everything about the environment. But we can, in fact, look to generations before us for wisdom and inspiration. The beauty about the world today is that we are more connected than ever. Whether it's through social media, local meetups, your school club, or even your barkada. You come together, we share ideas, we discuss the challenges, and we can collaborate and find solutions to the problems, particularly when we're talking about climate change. Because remember that the earth does not care what's your job title, whether, like me, I'm a lawyer, you're a student. The earth doesn't care where you live or the income that you have. But we all share and live in this planet, and therefore we all have a role to play in caring and preserving it. So how can we make environmentalism more accessible? What else can we do? Well, the first step is really realizing that it's not an all or nothing. I'm an environmentalist, period. No. Because it's really not about being perfect. Don't be discouraged if you cannot make the ideal environmental choice. I do not profess to do all of the things that I do, thinking about, is this my carbon footprint? Has it increased or not? It's really about being better at making deliberate, sustainable decisions that all add up for a positive impact in our environment. And it's about doing our part in a way that is natural and meaningful. And it's about creating a lasting relationship with our planet and based on respect. So let's take a moment on how we can inculcate sustainability into our daily lives. Not because we are told to do so, but because we care. So I'll give you 5. One is reduce your waste. You all know this. We all have trash, unfortunately. But the idea here is really to think about, well, how much are we going to be discarding is thinking twice whether we discard it or not. You know, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, they're not just like slogans. They are, in fact, ways by which for us to think about, are we, can we repurpose this? Can we compost this? Are we bringing our sustainable, reusable water bottle every time we go to the cafeteria when we want to get water? These are ways by which we reduce single-use plastics that pile up in landfills and therefore have a huge income. We just came from lunch, and I don't know about you, but are you looking at sustainable food choices? You don't have to go full on vegan to have a positive impact on the environment. Try how about incorporating a 1 day that you go meatless. Eat more veggies. Also, maybe buy more locally produced products, and reduce food waste. These are ways by you can reduce your carbon emissions from the food sector. In terms of an environment, every purchase that we make is a vote of the kind of world we want to live in. And if we are actually purchasing from sustainable products from sustainable businesses, those who use renewable energy or maybe do even segregation, that's a vote to make and drive the market to a greener future. Also, going green also means being energy efficient. Simple things as closing the lights when you're not using them, unplugging gadgets when not in use, or even being energy efficient or promoting green building policies can reduce significantly our energy consumption. And of course, just connect with nature. One of the most profound ways is really to connect with nature. Whether it's taking a walk in the park, taking a hike, or maybe appreciating the beauty of a tree or a flower. Once we fall in love with our planet, we naturally want to protect it. All these actions seem so small, but if every one of us and everyone in the planet actually do it, and by making small, mindful actions, we are going to make a big difference in our planet. And really, this is the premise of Earth Hour, which is the world's largest grassroots movement for the planet, which has been mobilized in over 7,000 cities in 193 countries and territories. And this is where people come together to have collective action for the environment. And as Earth Hour Philippines National Director for almost 15 years, here is my invitation to you to join us on Earth Hour 2025 on March 22, Saturday at 8:30. To turn off your lights by giving 60 minutes and doing positive action for our planet and logging it into the R Bank. We know that the Earth Hour 2025 also falls on World Water Day. And therefore, let's switch off to secure water for all. But you can also look at other things. So for example, I was introduced as someone who's been doing work on renewable energy. In our world, renewable energy is really at the forefront of tackling climate change. But many of us don't know where to begin. We always think that it's part of government, large businesses, but in fact, it's upon us. The power of energy is really in our hands. Solar panels on rooftops, community wind farms, even use of electric vehicles, and even decentralized energy. These all can be done at the community level. What if in your community you advocate for more use of solar panels, or maybe have local sustainable energy policies in place? That is where we are able to find ways to make solutions, because the real change happens when we work together. It starts with small community-driven actions, and which spreads out to outward changes. Our country is blessed with a lot of renewable energy. In fact, our Department of Energy would say we have the big show. Big because it's biomass, geothermal, solar, hydro, ocean, and wind. And for every one light bulb lit, for every 5 light bulbs lit, one is powered by geothermal. So let us advocate for more renewable energy use in our country because we do have and are blessed to have all these renewable energy sources. And it's not just about energy. There's really many, many ways to get involved, and I already outlined some of them. But by making sustainable choices in our daily lives, enough people doing it, we're going to make a huge impact. Finally, I want to create a vision with you by answering this question. What would it look like if everyone here today, all of us, embrace their passion for the environment? Imagine a world wherein you wake up without thinking about it and instinctively do something positive for our environment. Without thinking, without second guessing, without debate, just second nature. Imagine if the kind of impact we will have in our ecosystems, in our families, in our communities, if we think that way. And we do it with creativity, optimism, and action. Whether you're a student, you're an entrepreneur, you're a teacher, or you're a parent, you can make a difference. So when someone tells you, oh, being an environmentalist is hard, or I have to have significant lifestyle sacrifices, remember this: environmentalism is not perfection. It's about progress. Doesn't have to be hardship. It doesn't have to be a job that only people like me have to do. Environmentalism should really be something that is second nature to all of us. Because it's about loving our planet that gives us so much and protecting it. It's an opportunity to build a better future, to follow our passion, and to have a meaningful relationship with the earth. A world wherein the next generation doesn't have to, quote unquote, choose to care, but instinctively are caring because it's as if it's just one of a human act. Because the future of our planet is not a distant concern. It's here and now. So let's continue to support each other and inspire each other and encourage each other to work towards a sustainable future. Because every action, whether big or small, matters. And so when you think about environmentalism, I hope what comes to mind is you. So thank you.